Hello everyone, join me here in this video for a reconfiguration of this small cargo plane that I recently made. We're going to be removing the side door and changing the tail end to make it have a rear cargo door that drops down, making it very easy to drive cargo in and out with a loader. So this is something I wanted to do since I started this plane project. I wanted to have two versions, so let's begin on the second version. As we can see here, the current configuration has this cargo door, and then it has the UniCon tracks as well here. So it'll take a little bit of redoing, and I'll have to see what I do with this tail end to kind of still make it look nice. Just for comparison here is one of my helicopters, and you can see this drops down and we can drive vehicles right in. Now the nice thing with this helicopter is it's actually very wide, so trucks and things can fit in. The plane isn't as wide, but I still think the idea will be the same. But there are two trains of thought. You can see here we have the cargo door actually spawns open, and then it brings itself up into the rest of the helicopter body. Or what we can do is do what I did for my planes, which pretty much is have the door be a part of the plane itself, and then it doesn't have to drop in or move out, whatever, from spawning. It just stays put. It's quite fascinating actually to look at real life examples of things like this. So this is the twin boom, and I've searched up cargo planes, but you can see here the door is wild. It actually opens out like on both sides, not quite a fold down ramp. Now I'm just kind of taking some small inspiration from this, but you could see with twin booms it allows absolute easy loading and unloading. For that reason, what I'm actually going to do is grab my whole tail assembly, all of it, because it's going to be definitely reconfigured, and I'm going to drag it out and away from the rest of the plane to give us the maximum sort of what we have available to us as far as the tail end goes. So with that dragged out and removed, you can see here we got our fuel tanks. So that's kind of how I fill up and give extra capacity with the fuel. And here we have the rear end. So it does fade in, or kind of lean in, tilt in with these angled pieces. One thing to note, however, is the reason I didn't delete this is because not only is there all kinds of vital equipment in the tail end here that I'm going to start moving over, it also keeps all of our control fins connected. So rather than deleting the control fins and having to scramble and search for the microcontroller, I could either just keep them here, and when I put a new fin I could just refer to this one, or I can actually drag this one back over to this plane. I guess regardless of what we're going to do with the tail assembly, I do have to finish first this part of the plane. So something like this, you can see if we remove this portion here, we're right up to the cargo slot itself. I gotta say, it looks kind of intriguing, to be honest, with these kind of coming out of there. I know it's not right for it to not be coming out of the actual engine portion, so it's not as rigid. So now I've kind of exposed the engine as a whole, and what I can do is select each one and move it in towards the fuselage. Now I like how this looks, and I don't really want to redo all of this, so I'm just going to take this, put it right over top of the radiator in both cases, and that's going to give me a pretty good starting point. With both of these booms, I guess, placed there, we can now go and adjust the last portion. It's looking nice. You can see here I've placed the tail assemblies, and now they are ready to receive their flaps, and I refer to them as flaps. I know that they have different names, elevator, whatever. I'm not a huge airplane person, and it's not me just being negligent and like disregarding airplane culture, but there is a lot of knowledge, and I'm aware I cannot be an expert in all of it. So instead of faking it, I'm just gonna call them, I guess, control devices as the game calls it. But in essence, these are the ones that are going to be controlling the yaw of the plane, so turning kind of left and right in the air. And then what they also tend to have is this almost like car spoiler looking thing, and I'm sure that this has a name, and it looks like this. So now, like I said, we can easily just grab the node coming from here for the yaw and throw it on these two here. Of course, all this needs electrical. I'm just not going to put the electrical just yet because we also have to put the control surface that is going to control our pitch, so how much we go up or go down. Now, probably nicer if they're all tied together like this. Yeah, kind of like how that looks. So these ones are going to be attached to whatever this here was attached to. Now, as much as I would love to take off right away and give this a test, we can't, because the old tail assembly has all kinds of stuff that we have to extract. With most of this kind of actually even finalized by me, even the coloring scheme, I added some windows on the side portholes. Everything's looking quite nice. The one thing we're really missing are all these kind of systems that we have in here. One of them being the small camera, so that's one we should move, and the other being all of the instrumentation that controls pretty much the flight itself. What I will do though is extract the physical buttons that control this. So when we have this system, I actually developed a microcontroller, and you could find it right here, that has the hatch and light system. So it's not huge, but it's also well thought out. So everything is extracted, and I can just go ahead and grab all of it. And now here we get it all, and we just get to have fun assembling it in place rather than full on having to drag out all of these different things. Now, the one that I didn't copy over were the pivots. It's looking good. I'm quite happy with that. And let's see the door. Okay, so this is obviously not enough, and you can see we got a bump there, which is no good. If I set it to 1, obviously that's no good as well. So actually, this is why I did what I did on my helicopter, because it avoids a joint like this where you have a bump. And the other alternative is if you have this pushed out to the different area, like if this comes out to here, you lose the bump, sure, but now you create another problem. First of all, it looks ugly, like you physically have this sort of thing going on here. Okay, there you go. So you first of all have that happening, and when you open it, it does look much better, but you also get some strange physics happening on there. Now, to calibrate this, I actually think the best way is, rather than using that microcontroller where I preset values, I actually give myself a throttle lever. So you can see this length does more or less close it, probably as close as we can get. And when I open this throttle lever here, you could see we get a nice ramp. Now I have to do some playing around to see what angle I need to do so I can climb things in. So in here we could put the -0.5, and here I could put 0.22 or 0.23, and now really it just comes down to how easy or difficult it is for me to drive a vehicle into this. So remember, we had it like this to kind of facilitate driving things in, which is quite important. The whole purpose of this door is to allow easy loading. Just need to remove this throttle lever. Okay, so it's closed up. We can see a little bit of glitching through there, so we could reduce that a bit. And when we go to open it, well, this is using -0.45. Okay, in this case the door is more or less closed. Okay, there we go. It still does kind of bug out a little bit. We'll have to see that, but now we get a working ramp on this end and a nice call it gradual slope here. Something else that can get us a little bit extra length is actually if I move this whole door in by 1, like this, now what's going to happen is it actually works such that the door will first of all fit better in the plane itself, but now I've given myself a little extra wiggle room. Now I have to do a test to see if this thing has any chance in climbing up into the hold of the plane. If it doesn't, then the whole exercise is for naught, because the whole purpose of this door is to allow easy bringing in of containers. So you can see we're struggling, but we're struggling because of the height restrictions. So the container itself is topped out, hitting the top of the roof, and I'm trying to get over this bend. So it isn't that it's too steep, it's that it's too short. Very cool. So what I can do, or what I'm gonna do, is actually drop down the whole cargo deck and the door and all this by exactly 1. And by doing this, I think I hopefully can buy myself a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to the clearance. So all of this you can see is grabbed, and I'm going to drop it down by 1. Also, this is an advantage. I actually get now a bigger door. Alright, that should work. Okay, I drop this down, and even this slope now is too much, so perfect. I think this is the ultimate solution for this type of plane. This looks much better. We got a much nicer slope here. The one thing that I kind of want to do is extend out the plane. So now I've stretched out the back end, you can see here. So the idea being that I can use the slope now that I've just created to hide more of the door. And now to test this out again with this new slope and with higher. So we have a better slope and we have higher ceilings or higher roof line. Now I think the easiest and best thing for me to do to maintain kind of a nice circular fuselage would be just to use a 2x1 block. One other thing is, because we dropped the floor down, I actually do want to drop all this gear down as well, because it's now kind of on a different scale, different height than I normally like it. I normally like it to be kind of within reach of your character without having to look up or down too high. And I think that this now is much better for that. And actually this color scheme has to be adjusted for the new height. So little things here and there, little changes and fixes just as we kind of make our way through the build. See, these windows are way too high now. Now I like them there because on the exterior it matches with the body paint job, but on the interior I really don't like them because you probably wouldn't even see through them. They'd be so high. So either we scrap them all together, or I lower them, or I make them the taller version of the windows, and then I can just leave them, and on the exterior we'll have to kind of deal with it. Let's see what options we have. So this is option number 1, where we just put the taller window, and on the exterior, like, the color isn't going to match. We just have to kind of make it probably gray. Not terrible, but I do kind of miss that a bit. On the inside, I mean, obviously it's fine, and it gives us some light, which is nice. But yeah, I just don't like that. For the door to work, I could put a step here like this, and then you kind of take one small step, and then the rest of your steps you take inside the cockpit. And I will continue on the same body length I've done here, so this kind of 2x1. And now here's where we get a little bit interesting. How are we going to make the nose of the plane and this front end here look good with this? Obviously I don't want a very abrupt thing like that, and if probably the easiest thing would be to merge the whole front end and just make the whole plane literally feel lower on the front. And keep in mind, I'm not using any modded parts. So what you see here is all kind of vanilla in-game parts. Well, there we have it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of patience and you can kind of round it off a bit. So that, in my eyes, is rounded off. This portion here with the actual wheel itself, I could kind of leave it like that. But yeah, so now in essence it is lower than the other version, allowing us to load up the cargo bay here. So it works, especially for a retrofit project like this. Now as for the windows, we'll see, but the portholes, my biggest problem with them is this. Like, I can't paint clear lines on this. So without that, sometimes I think it's just easier to put like the square windows, even though they're square. And then we actually get to enjoy the fact we have windows and not really have a huge styling impact. Like you can see, if I do this and continue my blue, I'd say that has a much less impact than the previous porthole style windows. Now of course on the inside, one of the things I always do is paint around the windows quite dark, so then from the outside you don't really see a clear, like it just kind of merges it in a little bit. Of course when you see this, it doesn't look as nice, like the full-on squares. So what does one do, right? Like, either I move the paint scheme, which now I can do because I have a longer fuselage, or fully just remove the windows and, you know, I don't have to have them. The easiest thing would be to keep this paint job, would just be to not have windows. And for OMA, I like to kind of make them more bright and have more windows, but in that case I'd probably put a different paint scheme. I almost imagine using these voids here to fill up that tech. So what I'll do is clear out both of them. You can see we have all this space, and just kind of eat into this as far as we could. I think that's it. The biggest thing is the radio antenna, and honestly I'm just going to put it up here in the fuel tank so it's out of the way, not really bothering anyone. They all fit nicely, you could see. And I'm just going to place a physics flutter in all of these as well. Okay, I'm quite excited. Let's spawn it in. So now we'll do a full little test. I do want to put the cargo in it. And over here I can select the blue bay. So that will ensure that I actually can put it all the way in. Now in here you can see we climbed up the stairs, so that works. Now this sliding track that goes in the perpendicular direction may actually snag our UniCon. So what I could do is I could release the perpendicular, but you see that it says release UniCon side. So funny enough, I'm actually working on a revision that was requested by Arcades, who's working on a fantastic official version of the add-on for the UniCon system. So he kind of requested this because look at that. So now this is in trouble. So we'll try that again. I'm going to tilt it forward a little bit so it clears the ceiling and bring it down. Perfect. Okay, and there we go. We got our whole loader in here. We disconnect and we just drive out. Now granted, this is the smallest loader, but it doesn't matter, so it can be used to load up the plane. So that was the first step of the test. The UniCon container is in. I can now close the door, and I could make my way up to the cockpit where we fire the thing up. Okay, engines, avionics. Okay, we'll turn up the throttle. Everything's looking good. We got fuel. Turn off the handbrakes and slowly apply the collective, and off we go. Perfect. And because it's the same frame or chassis as the other one, we should have very nice maneuverability. I could see some small coloring things that I gotta fix, but that's okay. Yeah, that is really, really nice. Now the whole purpose of this plane is that you could open the cargo hatch from the pilot seat and you could drop the UniCon containers for their delivery. So that's one of those things that I found was quite important. I just want to make sure we don't end up flying into that mountain range. So I'm just going to turn the plane a little bit, maybe going in that direction. Okay, and we'll apply the altitude hold. So now if we enter here, you could, so you see here it says release H4 bottom and parachute. Now that's also something that was requested by Arcades that we change, which is actually a very good point. But if I disconnect that, off it goes. I should have pressed the parachute button, but in essence, hopefully that's a good delivery somewhere down there in the water. Oh, it's gonna hit. There we go. Splash. Yeah, so mission successful. The person can go fish their container out of the water, and we have completed and made a new version of this plane that is ready to go with the new and amazing add-on that is being worked on by Arcades, and just for all of your UniCon transportation needs as well. I did kind of my best attempt to paint the door continuous here, but again, there are some restrictions based on the game itself, but there's some small things I'm going to fix, some coloring issues I noticed, but otherwise, that is all, folks. So I do want to give a huge thank you and shout out to all of my supporters, all of my Discord server boosters, all of my YouTube members. These guys are amazing. They really give me extra motivation through their extra generosity and support, and I really do thank them for that. And of course, I do want to thank each and every one of you for watching, for subscribing, for being a part of the community, for being a part of the channel. It is fascinating and fantastic to really have such a community where I can not only bounce ideas off, but really help people learn and motivate them in whatever it is they want to do in Stormworks, and maybe even in engineering and other portions that apply to real life too. It's my honor and it's absolutely tremendous. So I do want to thank all of you for that, and until next time, happy Stormworksing everyone. Now if you're still here, you get some bonus content, but pretty much what I've done is I've added the R10 system as well. So maybe you can't fit a full-size car, getting out would be a problem, right? So probably not good for cars. But that said, there's a lot of the other vehicles that I've made, a lot of quads, we got some side-by-sides, stuff like that. Let's see. So what about putting a rat task and one of the bigger ones, like a 4? Will that work? I mean, the roof line might be long, but I'll be happy if one of these can fit, to be honest. Okay. Okay. Alright, and we are in. Oh yes. Okay, perfect. So I did not set the connector, so I should have set vehicle connector here, and we gotta make our way across until boom, it's in. So now we can just shut it down. It still is tight to get around the vehicle, you could see, but not fully impossible, I suppose, especially because a car like this has so many, like, there's no like full walls you could kind of jump through. And now we could seal up the back door and make our way to the cockpit with our nice little side-by-side as a cargo.